Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. This is your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a moment to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. John Hawkins. So when did you have the aspiration to go multi-state with this model?
I did realize that there is this blue ocean.
Oh, I'm jealous in a lot of ways.
And I looked around and, there are people that do what I do. There are people that do some of what I do, and there are people that don't do some of what I do. And so there's not much out there. Now, part of what I have to do is educate lawyers that, it's worth, and they need it and it's worth it. So that's part of it. But when they do know it and they hire me, they usually stay on basically forever, sort of on speed dial. But part of it was, it really was, I did not want to be 20 years from now and say, I should have done it. I should have done it. And I certainly didn't want to be 20 years from now watching somebody else who did it. I was like, no, I got to do it. I know I can do it. I know there's a need. There's nothing out there. I'm going to do it. So, and look, even with the blue ocean and all that stuff, it's not easy. It's not easy. And again, that's what I like about it.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? So Jules, you hear a common thread, right? So he started out where he identified the opportunity and then he did tons of self-study, which was what guy like Mark Whitehead out of Texas. I don't know if you know Mark, you should have him on your podcast, John. He's awesome. Mark does veteran and disability cases, right? He does. And he basically same thing. He had a personal injury background, a little different from you, but he had a personal injury background. He identified a blue ocean, knew nothing about it. He got books and he studied it. Now, another great person we had on here was a guy, Jeff Kitchaven. And Jeff said when he wanted to be a private mediator, he saw his opportunity to cash out a private practice and he started by doing work for free, right? And I talk about this stuff because I want people that hear this to think, don't look at John 15 years in. Look at what John did to get to 15 years in. Don't look at John when he opens up his 50th office in whatever part of the country it's going to be in. You got to see what's behind it, right? They're working for free, willing to sit down with tomes that we have to study from cover to cover on weekends and nights while you're trying to feed your family. Look at that stuff. Jules, you get to see that firsthand, right? Like you're talking to a guy like John or these other guests I'm talking about. Jeff Kitchaven, that's how he became a mediator. Now he's a sought after mediator. People fly him all over the country. He's out of California. He's excellent. Everybody starts to share those paths, right? Of the sleepless nights, the uncompensated work that you put in to become an expert. So yeah, what you charge now is worth it, right? And I think that anybody that's listening to this, if you own a law firm, one of your first retentions should be, and I wish I did it much earlier, is ethics counsel. And if you're going to be a person who's cutting deals for partnership, got to have John on retainer, right? Like to me, why would I think I know anything about this other than I know how I want to negotiate a deal, but the paperwork and the protection and all the stuff that you provide for both parties, right? Yeah, you're going to represent one side, but a well-documented agreement really provides protection for both. Everything's kind of spelled out, right? Is there anything about that that's not accurate that I just said?
Yeah, I'm a big believer. You anticipate what might go wrong and you address it on the front end while everybody's still friendly. Because if it goes sideways and you don't have these things on paper, it is really bad. But I want to mention something, the long haul, the overnight success that no one really sees. And I'll go back to sort of my science background is just an exponential curve. For years, it looks like it's barely moving. And then right towards the end, it just shoots straight up. And it's, that's how I approach everything, just keep slogging away because it's moving. I just can't see it yet.
It's funny because as you were saying it, I'm like, man, it's a slog. I know I've been there, right? Yeah. It's a slog. And then right when you think you can't take the pain anymore, the hockey stick happens, right?
That's right.
It's awesome that you just said that.
I did not have some grand vision way back when. I tried some other things first. I think it's iterative. I think you experiment. Some things work, some things don't. And you just sort of gradually get there. I tried a few other areas way back when that I thought, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do this. And I probably could have made a practice area out of them, but wasn't interesting enough to hold me there long enough. And this sort of was. And it's grown and changed over the years too. So to the lawyers out there that say, I got to pick the one thing now, I don't think you have to. And I don't think you should try to. It's just is start edging to the things that interest you. And eventually you might pull something from here and something from there and then create something that didn't even exist before, which is sort of what I did.
Yeah. You build a better mousetrap and all of a sudden now you got a business, right? And I did that with the verticals I have. There's a bazillion PI firms out there, but I said, we're going back to our trial roots this year. This year, I got 4 cases that are marked for trial. You'd be surprised what happens when you draw that line in the sand. It just changes things.
We have a stressful job. Most lawyers do. And you got to relieve the stress, and some hit the bottle. But I think a better way is exercise of some sort. And so that's a non-negotiable for me every day. I do it every morning. And there've been some times like during COVID, I didn't get to do it for a little while. And I started feeling, I could feel it. I could feel the stress levels going up.
Things that are purposely hard are actually saving our brains, both in a physical way, but also mental health. You brought it up in a way that we're in high stress positions. I used to feel, probably going back about 10 years ago now, I used to feel like if somebody was to do an MRI scan or a CAT scan of my brain, it would be glowing red or bright yellow from stress. Meditation was the game changer for me. Extreme exercise, right? I will work out every day. I had a cold. I didn't want to work out for 10 days. I wanted to let it run its course. But I went back. It wasn't fully gone. And I was like, I don't care if I'm on 2 miles an hour on the treadmill. I'm putting my 45 minutes in on the treadmill, right? I think at the higher level, even if it's physical exercise, what you're talking about is that mental health care for yourself, right? And a lot of what you're saying is why you're in the high performing masterminds you are, right? I know there's multiple levels to them, but all the high performers I talk to, same thing. I am going to get up every day early and get the gym in. That sets your tone for it. Right now, your endorphins are going. For me, it's meditation. And you talk about it when you talk about the endurance running and how many problems you can solve, that there are parallels between the struggle and the run.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, some of my best ideas come on the treadmill. They just pop in I got to make sure I can write them down on my phone. I think exercise, everybody needs it. I think humans are built to move around and we need to do that. But even if it's, playing a musical instrument or whatever it is, a lot of lawyers, particularly at the bigger firms, they put their personal life on hold and do nothing but work. And no wonder they're miserable. I mean, they hate it.
Miserable, divorced, drinkers. Somebody referred in an interview and said, man, it's like you guys are next generation in the way you're approaching stuff. And by you guys, I mean like everybody on this call, right? You guys are all next generation in what you're doing versus the old guard, right? You could open up the bottle of scotch. I could have been that guy, by the way, because I'm doing this almost 30 years. I came up with the old guard. They went to the bar for lunch while they were on trial. They had liquid lunches. It was like a running joke. There were drunk attorneys going back to court. No, I hand to God, one of my first trials back in the day, I went to go get lunch at the bar and there was a line of attorneys just drinking scotch for lunch. I'm not joking. Like that's what it was. But those guys all dropped dead from cigarette smoke and bad habits. And the new guard is, I don't drink anymore, but the new guard is you're going to get that hour running or you're going to get that hour lifting. Juliet, same thing. Jules is one of the few people texting me at 4:30 in the morning when she's on the treadmill with marketing ideas. And I'm like, hey man, I'm not texting you. You're texting me. So I just want it clear. Like I'm not bothering you till 8, but if she's having ideas for the podcast or something else, like even though she's young, she's that new guard of understanding. Like you could have both. You just have to design your life.
4:30. That's pretty good. So that's pretty good.
Thank you. I try.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that's the importance of investigation early and often when it comes to cases in our office. And to that end, we have Keith Roman.
I talk to my law students about this need to have a balance in our presentation. I say, I'm going to teach you not to be lawyers, not to act like lawyers. I'm going to teach you to act like a human being. And if you're a lawyer who acts like a human being, that's a friggin' superpower because it throws people off. They're not expecting that. They're scared. There's a lawyer in the room. We're going to go get tense about it. But you bring a human quality. So I teach my law students, I say, I want you to have on one side of the scale, warmth, connection, personality, transparency. On the other side of the scale, I want you to have observation, professionalism, preparation. And somewhere in the middle, when it works right, is the sweet spot that makes you an effective interviewer and makes you an effective investigator. And the other thing, I'll just add this and pile on with this a little bit, because at the end of the day, it's a lot about people. I mean, there are investigators out there whose firms are really devoted to data crunching, and they're doing open source research and the data crunching, and they can give you all this information. And we can do that for you, but we think a lot more about people. And, I've interviewed everybody. In 40 years, I've interviewed mayors, I've interviewed murderers, I've interviewed the homeless guy on the corner and the billionaire. And the thing that I've learned about doing a good interview is that interviewing somebody, and you're getting a little of that, more than a little. I listened to several of your podcasts. You're in relationship with somebody. For the period of time that you're doing the interview, you're in a relationship with them. Now, it's not like a love relationship, but it is a back and forth. And in a relationship, I've got to give you something. You've got to give me something. And, it's maybe the witness needs respect. Maybe they need to be heard. Maybe they just need you to help them calm down. And of course, I need something from them. And I need information. I need cooperation. So that period and that sense of what it means to be that back and forth is something that kind of permeates my firm. My lawyers at my firm think like investigators. My investigators at my firm think like lawyers. And that's a kind of a powerful process for us. People call me, I'm starting out as an investigator. What should I do? I said, get the heck out of the office.
Yep.
Go get it. And don't just show up, sign up for this organization or that organization. Get involved. Get on a committee. Do some service, because sure, you can stand around at the annual conference and hand out your business cards, but honestly, you can do that till the cows come home, and It's not going to make work. But you get on a committee and you and 10 other people in your field are struggling with some difficult organizational issue, and they see you and they learn about you and they connect with you. I think that's been, for me, the biggest that has made my practice grow.
I love that. And I'll tell you why. There's a common thread. Jules, you hear it every time we have the highest performers on. It's kind of like a iteration of Dale Carnegie, right? Mm-hmm. Put the other person first.
Oh, yeah.
Don't seek to sell. Provide value, and the rest takes care of itself, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you're saying. That's why, I love when I start to hear these common threads through high performers. One of my buddies owns a multiple 8-figure law firm. He's crushing it, 4 different states. Yeah. He has a common saying: get out from behind your desk. Nothing great's going to happen in your business from you sitting behind your desk, right? Building connections is one of the top things you need to do. Stop treating people transactionally. Don't worry about what's in it for you, and trust the process.
But you give, you will get much more back in return.
So what advice would you give to young law firm or young lawyers who are looking to be law firm owners, or just young entrepreneurs in general, to recognize what that North Star is and how to keep fostering it, or keep in alignment with it?
I think it's about self-awareness and reflection, right? Personally, professionally, what matters to you? Right? What matters to you when you sit still in the dark and you're meditating or you're praying or whatever it is? What really matters to you? And what kind of XYZ do you want to be? What kind of matrimonial lawyer do you want to be? What kind of marketing person do you want to be? Right, Jules? Yeah. We have a good friend, James Joseph. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about him, man. He knows his North Star and who he wants to be as a matrimonial lawyer. He could easily be like every other lawyer out there that is like, we're going to make this 10 times worse because it's going to generate 100 times the legal fee, right? That's not who he is. So I think you have to figure out your North Star. I would invite anybody that listens to this, just reflect on your own North Star. Yeah. What is that? Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. I have my good friend Neil Goldstein.
And I talk about this all the time. Ego gets in the way of many lawyers and their true success.
Yeah, because ego is a liar, right? Ego is a liar.
A few months ago, I had to go to a memorial service at a cemetery. And before we started, it was a nice day, and I'm looking around, and there's thousands of headstones there. And I look at all of them. All of them are different, right? They all different sizes, shapes, whatever. But there's one thing that they all don't have. There's one thing that they all missing. And what's missing? What's missing is how much money the person made, what kind of car they drove, what neighborhood they lived in. None of that is on those. Not one stone has that on there.
Right.
But what is on there? Great parent, great spouse, wonderful brother, very charitable, something about charity or philanthropic, great teacher. All those things that once we're no longer here, because there will be a time, a day, a moment when we won't be here any longer. That's what people will remember. They're not going to remember, this is the guy that had those really nice Oriental rugs in his office,
Right.
or this is the guy that had the conference room that's all teched out. By the way, nothing wrong with those things. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but let's put it in its right place.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that being real with your clients, often I've now consider them not even my clients anymore. I consider them their partners when we have a case together. That's my partner. That's my partner on a case.
Right.
And often after that relationship is over, we still have another relationship that's going on. So
yeah, and it's funny because you did say that cemetery story to me when we had lunch at the Italian restaurant.
Sorry.
And no. Listen, I want my listeners to hear that because it's a really important lesson. It had the same effect on me the first time you said it. I was kind of dumbstruck, silent, because it's a stark reminder of what's really important. You go into the heart of it. You go into the relationship aspect, especially there's a lot of lawyers that listen to this. Mental health for lawyers is probably at an all-time low, right? The suicide rates, addiction rates among lawyers is at an all-time low. And yet the one thing every mental health expert will tell you is it's about the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the money. It's not about the net worth. It's who you're going to be remembered by.
Right.
I was talking about a really problematic stress I was feeling. And you asked me this question. It's kind of haunted me. You said, does your wife know? And now my wife, she never listens to this, but Jules, you know my wife. And I said, no, man, I don't talk about this stuff with my wife. And you were like, stop. You go home, you talk about this stuff with your wife. This is a person that you married to 15 years. And I guarantee you, I'm not the only guy like that, where I thought I was shielding them from the stress, which is why men, they got to go home. They got to talk to their spouse. They got to share this stuff.
Well,
right?
Bingo, you got it. Because, I think I touched upon it in the book. I did a few videos on this. And the fact of the matter is, you can't separate. You can't, unless you're a superhuman being, and few of us are, you can't separate home life from work life. You could say that. People like to say that I leave my shit at home, or I leave my problems at work, whatever the situation is. Bullshit. Because if something happens in one area, it's got to take something away from the other area, especially if it's consistent and over time. And let's be honest. Yes, you just married somebody, one of the deepest and most soulful relationships that we can have. We could talk about relationships all we want, but one of the deepest relationships you could have is when you get married, right? And how do you not share what goes on 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day in your life with your partner? And I'm not just saying somebody got somebody's birthday today. Nobody, not talking about that.
The real stuff. Real stuff.
Oh, honey, our checking account is really low. We haven't settled the case in a month and a half, and I'm getting nervous. Why? Why can't you say that? Why? Because it would make you look less of a person.
I think,
I'm not talking to you, by the way.
No. I get you, but again, I speak to a lot of my inner circle people on a regular, and I know Craig Goldenfarb has his wife speaking at the 7-figure thing coming up, because I can only speak as a man that for me, it's a exterior shell of strength that you want to shield your family from. But what you said so brilliantly at the mastermind, and you've said it to me before, is listen, man, if you think she don't know something's wrong, she knows. Because when you're up pacing the floor at 2 a.m., guess who's also awake, just laying there quietly?
Yeah, that's 100% right. Let me tell you something else, almost from a marketing point of view. Think about this. Maybe the connection isn't that clear, but think about this, because I agree with you. I think it's almost genetically part of, especially for a man, to feel like they have to shield their family from certain difficulties that might be going on in another part of their life. But what I say is that it makes you stronger and it makes you more of a man when you do share those things. Look, every so often, if you look inside a magazine, you'll see a really good looking male model holding a little baby. Have you ever seen those pictures?
Yeah, of course.
Good looking guy.
Jules has them all over her office.
maybe it's a bare chested guy and he's holding a baby. Why is that picture so attractive to women?
It's strength and vulnerability at the same time.
Right. It's no different than a man being vulnerable, with his emotions. And when a man is vulnerable with his emotions, that is attractive. And I'm just speaking certainly in terms of physical attractiveness. But beyond that, this is your partner in life. Share what you need to share, period.
Right.
It's your business, whether she's legally a partner or not.
Right.
She owns part of that business, man. Yeah. She's helped you develop that business.
100%. I always say for the younger attorneys that are listening to this, if they're single, the single most important thing that you're ever going to do in life is who you choose as your spouse. So choose wisely. This is something that's a common thread. I'm in my 50s as well. And people do not realize the toll of entrepreneurship on the family, right? Because if you're happily married and you're working at your marriage enough, typically your spouse will basically sign off on everything you want to do, right? They trust you implicitly. They've seen you run your business. They know that you're doing it for decades now. But the toll, the unspoken or undiscussed toll of the sleepless nights, the stress, the sheer blinder focus, laser-like focus that certain entrepreneurs, that toll it takes on your wife, your kids. So I think that's actually a great service to provide, because how many firm owners, let's talk about law firm owners, are divorced, right? There's so many people that are super successful financially, miserable because they're divorced. They see their kids on a part-time basis or they're estranged from their families.
The nature of our business, when you think about it, being a personal injury lawyer in particular, is listening to somebody else's challenges that they're going through. Unfortunately, many lawyers go into those types of conversations with the intent not on listening, but on talking. So they're already thinking about, what am I going to say? How am I going to respond, without even hearing what somebody else is saying, without looking at how the other person is physically talking to you. When I say physically talking to you, when people talk to me in my conference room, when I talk to a client, whether I'm sitting at Starbucks with them, in the office conference room, wherever, they're usually talking to me with their hands. Maybe they're talking to me with no hands. Their hands are folded. That happens a lot with younger people. Maybe they're talking to me and their voice goes up at a particular moment, which you have to see and hear. Maybe they're talking very low, and maybe there's a reason for that. And if you're not listening, not only with your ears, but with your eyes and your soul, it takes time to do that. It's hard. Then you're never going to really understand what somebody's going through. And how could you be a good advocate, a good trial lawyer? The best moments I've had in court, or to mediation even, is when I am able to literally stand in the shoes of the client and tell whether it's a judge or a jury or in a mediation, somebody, exactly what the client is going through. Not just kind of like this made up bullshit, that you should know how much pain and suffering they have. Bullshit. Tell me what their day is like. And how else can you do that unless you're listening to somebody? And, it really does take effort to do that, because, as I said, many lawyers, they want to be center stage. And you really have to make the client center stage. They have to feel, as you said, Tom, they have to feel like they're being seen. They have to feel like they're being heard. That's key. And many lawyers just can't put that together. Why I was able to do it, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Obviously, it has something to do with empathetic skills. It became very important to me.
Glenn Gutek.
I will tell you that both your levels of success and your enjoyment of the process really, really hinges on practicing some degree of wisdom around the people that you really invite into your life professionally and personally.
That is powerful. Yeah, 100%. It's about people. It's always about the people. Craig Goldenfarb. I was talking to somebody today on a coaching call, and the person was talking to me about, hey, I'm interested in coaching, and they were right around that $1 million mark. And what kept coming up was the topic of fear. They must have used the word fear 5 times in that one call. And I said, well, you're at a crossroads, similar to what you just said. You're at a crossroads where you can't fear X, Y, and Z. X being people disappointing you, or fear letting go of control, and build. So you either have to choose your desire to build is greater than your need to feel in control over situations that scare you, or stay a solopreneur or have like a small office, 1 attorney and 5-7 staff, or you're going to have to let go past the $1 million mark to then grow and scale a business.
Yeah, fear is the main blockade at that step. And, just like in a fork in the road, when you're facing that proverbial fork, you're scared of making the wrong decision because you have a decision to make. And the only thing that's preventing you on taking one path or the other is fear. And you've nailed it. It's the fear of delegation, the fear of letting go, the fear of control, the fear of failure. These are all fears. So every part of business growth for me involves a new challenge involving fear. And so each stage, I talk about 5 stages of law firm growth at my seminar, and each stage brings a different type of risk and a different type of fear. And in order to be able to identify those and work through those is what allows a person to progress, not only as a person, but as a business person.
You cannot grow a business if you cannot process, control, and cope with fear at every level. And it just doesn't get easier when you make more money or revenue. It gets worse. It gets worse because there's more at stake.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid of making mistakes. You can be afraid of it, but you gotta be willing to do it anyway. And I think it's a matter of trusting your skill set, right? Because that could be you can have a rational fear of making a mistake. You still have to make decisions, and some of them are going to be wrong, which means you made a mistake. What you want to do is be able to say, do I trust my skill set enough and my people enough at the next level, my team, to make mistakes, fix them, and move on and learn from those mistakes? So what I would say to anybody battling fear in their professional growth, personal, it kind of applies across the board. Face your fears. Face your fears and take a step in moving forward one way or the other. Maybe your fear is rational and you shouldn't move forward, but analyze it in an unemotional and rational way. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go Anywhere Podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of the law can scale without losing its heart. If you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals, check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.